he's a foremost teacher of holistic development and a very experienced author as well. And he addresses the great challenge of how to ground spirituality in the modern age. Now, as part of his holistic background, he spent 2 years on spiritual retreat with Saharan Berbers. He's been involved with the Findhorn Foundation for 30 years, and he's also a co-founder of Alternatives, the Alternatives Programme, which is at St James's Church in Piccadilly, London. So, in other words, he really is at the cutting edge of joining together everything that is holistic in the New Age and this spiritual alternative movement with everything that is established. Now, today his presentation is entitled, "Is There Meaning in This Mystery?" And the key phrase is, the more you know, the less you know. And he's going to be exploring that paradox. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome William Bloom.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me at the back okay? Yeah. Good. All right. Could we take 60 seconds silence together just to bring us into the space? Thank you. I've known Satis since I was 20, actually. And I think one of the reasons why I was asked to stand in for him was, I'm just waiting for the last people. Come on in and park yourselves. I think one of the reasons why I was asked to stand in for him was because, like him, I have a deep interest in how spirituality, contemporary spirituality, the emerging spirituality that we're experiencing can actually ground and earth into everyday life. How we can take the magnificence of our ideas and actualize them so they land and are of service. I actually think possibly I'm more appropriate today than Satis might have been also, because I've had a long-standing interest in phenomena. And one of the ways in which I explore phenomena is by not using the mind. My friend Marko Pogacnik, who's a Slovenian sculptor that some of you may have heard of, was leading and recently designed the flag and the postage stamps for Slovenia. And he's a landscape sculptor. And a couple of days ago, he was leading a workshop in Austria. And they were designing a piece of sculpture that would go in the landscape. And what he does is, with a group of people, they dance and sing and tone and move with landscape, feel the landscape, dance the landscape, and then they produce a shape which for them represents the form and the flow and the shape of the landscape, and then they place it into a sculpture, which they then place at an appropriate point in the landscape, like an acupuncture needle. And he and the group had finished doing this beautiful piece of work together. They went to bed, and when they woke up in the morning, in the field adjoining the center where they were doing the workshop, there was a circle that was 100% the same as what the group had designed. And my first question for him, though, because he and I, like many of you here, we're used to phenomena at this point. We've seen and experienced phenomena over the decades. But my first question to him was, what did it feel like? And he said, it felt friendly and loving. And I asked, did that reflect the quality of the group dynamic that was doing the work? And he said yes. So one of the things that's interesting to me at the moment is how phenomena, it's not just the shape, the pattern, the symbol that reflects some unconscious process, but there's also a texture in the atmosphere which reflects the group dynamic that created the phenomenon, if you follow me. And as an energy worker, one of the things that I was trained in very early on, this is in my early 20s, I was trained that when I experienced a phenomenon, a pattern, a symbol, then what I needed to do was sink out of my head into my body, to sink into my body, center in my hara, in my center, in my lower stomach, my chalice, my grail, my cauldron, center in the roots of the tree of life within me, center in the trunk that is my body. And from that point of center, allow myself to feel what's happening in my field. And my teacher suggested I do a particular exercise. And the exercise was twice a day for 7 years in morning and evening meditation. I was to do that centering into my body and then feel, what does water feel like? What does earth feel like? What does air feel like? What does prana, vitality, feel like? Are there different types of prana and vitality that I can sense of different frequencies? When does emotional energy start? What does emotional energy feel like? What does dense emotional energy feel like? What does high, serene emotional energy feel like? What do thoughts feel like? What do good thoughts feel like? What do bad thoughts feel like? What does intuition feel like? What does the soul level feel like? What does spirit feel like? The different levels of spirit. How far could I expand my sensations, my ability to cognize, perceive, feel the sensations? How far could I feel them? I did this twice a day for 7 years. And as an energy worker, it taught me a certain level of accuracy about perceiving, feeling, sensing what is there. And there were other key questions that were then to be put into the pot, having identified what layer this thing is that you're feeling in your field, which may be your own. Maybe your own stuff, it may be stuff outside you, it may be projection, it may be imaginary. Always those questions going on in the back of one's heart and one's mind, always scanning for inconsistency, projection, imagination. And the major question, though, that was asked, in terms of what does it feel like, the major question was, is it in flow? Is it moving? Is it benevolent? Does it have affection, care, love, wisdom, harmony in it? Or is it inert, jaggedy, unpleasant, frightening? First questions. Is it good or is it bad? Old occult trick for a Christian. Will the energy say the Lord's Prayer with you? Will the energy say a Buddhist prayer? Or will it just back off? What's its harmonic? So when I'm sitting in a crop circle, for example, my interest is not in the pattern. Maybe my interest should be in the pattern, but my interest is not in the pattern because I resonate with an Islamic saying. It's a comment in Islam about Jesus' miracles. And the Muslim says, very serenely, he just says, what use have I of miracles given the beauty of all creation? From a blade of grass to the gorgeousness of the cosmos, what use have I for phenomena? So one of the questions that occurs to me when I'm in phenomena and listening to stuff about phenomena is, what is this teaching me in terms of the development of my consciousness? Because there's only so far my mind can go. My mental cognition, my mental working with the patterns, maybe all I ever wanted from correspondences and Kabbalah and symbolism and patterns, maybe all I wanted, maybe all you want, but this is certainly what I wanted, maybe all I wanted was reassurance that there were harmonics that run through the universe, that make sense, that have coherence, that have beauty, that have form. Do you follow what I'm saying? Maybe that's what I need. Maybe that's why I was so caught for a decade or so in the correspondences between the different symbols of different religions and of magic, that finally I could say a part of my mind, brain, my reptilian survival mechanism could say, there is more than this human stuff that's imprisoning me. Because in the human body, we internalize the tensions and the pain and the suffering of our families, our ancestors, our own karma. We internalize the tensions and anxieties of our culture, of our society. We become frozen. We get caught into career patterns, status, relationships, money. And in the middle of all that, where is the flow and the power and the ability to create your life that belongs to the soul? It's caught in this social, cultural prison. And I think one of my ways out was this huge desire to believe the phenomena. Because if the phenomena were real, then I would know that there was more than just this prison of being human. And like you, no doubt, I'm sure my story is your story. I would actually ask for, give me more phenomena, give me something solid. I want to see a flower opening. I saw a flower opening. I want to see something move. I saw something move. I want to see oil appear in somebody's hands. I saw oil appear in somebody's hands. I want those kinds of things. And at the end of the day, I had to sink out of my head into my body and simply go, it is beautiful. blade of grass, the cosmos. My mind can partly get it, can only partly get it. My heart can fully get it. My energy body, my rooted, cauldroned, tree of life, anchored energy body can feel the whole thing. Can feel the whole thing. What is the greatest phenomenon? Surely it's that throughout the ages, culture by culture, without exception, when women and men pause to experience nature, the universe, cosmos, you have to pause first. Pause to experience it. Consciously pause to experience it without exception. Without exception. They go, oh, flow, oceanic, benevolent, wise, power, growth, creation, cycles, positive, wise, compassionate. Isn't that the phenomenon? And in the magical traditions of the West, in the mystic traditions of the West, the great work, was called the great work of the mystical traditions, the magnum opus of alchemy, was not the understanding of the symbols and the numbers and the harmonics of Pythagoras. The great work was always one thing that's reflected also in Taoism, esoteric Buddhism, Hinduism, the shamanic traditions. The great work was only one thing, and that was somehow or other melt your consciousness, melt your consciousness, melt your consciousness into the oceanic reality that's harmonious, flowing, moving, everything I said before. Melt your consciousness into that and embed it cell by cell through the whole of your being. So the whole of who you are is loving consciousness, compassionate, wise consciousness. There was never any other goal. Was there? So in the midst of all this, we have an event like this, where we're looking at phenomena and we're looking at 2012. And at the end of the day, all I can say and feel or hope for us is that whatever is going on with the phenomena, with the apparent power points in time, 2012 is a power point in time, the era is a power point in time. I was saying to Paulden earlier, if you're excited by life, isn't it always a power point in time? But at the end of the day, all I can hope for us is whatever happens, whatever is triggered for us through the phenomena, through the dates, through the timing, all I can hope for us is that one by one, we expand our consciousnesses, melt into the field, and embed it in ourselves. And in doing that work for ourselves, we do it for everyone else. It ripples. It's holographic. You're in me, I am in you. If you do it, thank you. If you do it, thank you. And I like 2012, and I like the harmonic convergence because it brought people together into doing things together that helped melt us, that helped create a sense of community. So it's good at that level, of course it is. But what I work with at the moment is this whole business of, can we take contemporary spirituality? What's happening to us? I need some water. It's been hot in here, hasn't it? Yeah, thank you for coming back in. I saw some of you coming out of the last talk just wilting. So I think it's very noble of you to come back in. Thank you. Can we take the kind of spirituality that's emerging through people like us, and can we do more with it than just wonder about it, be curious about it? I'm looking now I have a feeling sometimes that our generation, my generation, post-war generation, we had a destiny. And I'm looking to see that destiny fulfilled. The French black philosopher, political activist, Frantz Fanon, said, "The great tragedy for any generation is to not fulfill its destiny." And I'm looking at our destiny. And surely our destiny is something to do with understanding what we believe and somehow or another grounding it into society, into our culture. Are there strands that we can pull together and work with, that we can stand behind? Is there a flag we can raise? Is it worth raising a flag? Maybe it's too dangerous to raise a flag, but maybe there's a flag we can raise. Let me give you my opinion. Take it or leave it. If it feels comfortable, work with it. I've got handouts to do with the talk on the stage and at the front desk. So if there are bullets during the talk that you want to remember, it's all down on a piece of paper already, and you can have the notes at the end. 200 years ago, 300 years ago, a human being wanting to explore spirituality was in a cul-de-sac. Where could they go? They could go to the local priest or perhaps some wise person who lived outside the village. Two sources of information about spirituality. There is something wonderful about life. I want to understand it. What is its meaning? How do I grow? How do I develop myself? What does this say about morality and values? What does this say about how I engage in life? Two people, your local priest, priestess, and the wife, usually priest, as we've had 4,000 years of male-dominated religion. 300 years later, 300 years on, somebody who asks that question now has on the plate before them the writings and the teachings of every spiritual tradition on this planet. 300 years ago, it was difficult to travel. 300 years ago, people were mainly illiterate. 300 years ago, people lived in isolated communities where single faiths dominated what you could and could not believe. 300 years later, we live in a global village of free-flowing information where we and our children, when we explore those questions, we can have answers from the world's wisdom. There's one website which claims to have the text of every single sacred scripture upon it. And it more or less does. And joined in with the texts are all the insights of modern psychology, developmental psychology, how people grow and change and transform. Today we have the insights of physics, chemistry, new biology. We have the insights of ecology and environmentalism. These were not available 300 years ago. We can also see, don't we, the huge commonalities between the major faiths. Do we not see them? The huge commonalities. Let's name what the major faiths have in common, that we also believe, I think. Am I speaking for us? Do I dare to? I don't know. Let me risk it. At the core of all the faiths Isn't there a simple injunction to connect with the wonder? Have spiritual experience. How many of the Gallup polls show that 70% of people, when asked the question in the right way, own up and say, I've had a spiritual experience. Has everybody here had a spiritual experience? Yeah. How many of you had it in landscape? Give me some hands. How many of you had spiritual experience in landscape? Out in the countryside, in mountains, by the ocean, up in the hills, in the forests. Yeah? It's not in a church or temple or synagogue, is it? How many of you had spiritual experiences loving another human being? Hands are moving. How many of you have had spiritual experiences looking after little children or animals? How many of you have had spiritual experiences doing sport? There's usually a few hands. That's what I like. How many of you have had spiritual experiences? This is for the men, usually. Sorry, this is gender specific. You've done the plumbing and it works. Yes, there are hands. The point that I'm making is there's spiritual experience, and then there's theology and religion, and there's get in this box, and there's spiritual experience. According to a huge piece of academic research, which has involved interviewing 36,000 people in 40 countries, the University of Michigan research, in countries which are democratized and post-industrial, countries that have been through the Industrial Revolution, or cultures that have been through the Industrial Revolution and are democratic, 70% of people have moved on from traditional faiths into a more generalized spirituality, have not become secular, have not lost God. But the actual social research, and it's rigorous social research, unpacks that the majority of people, more than 2/3, have moved on from traditional faiths but have nevertheless retained and, according to the research, deepened their private and personal sense of spirituality. And understand that their personal and private sense of spirituality is meaningful to them in how they guide and live their lives and the values they apply to their relationships. I'm assuming that all of us in this room belong to that group. Would that be fair? Every spiritual tradition says, recognize that you are connected with the wonder of the universe. Just by being alive, you're part of it. The beauty, the miracle, the wonder of it all is here, isn't it? It's here: earth, air, fire, water, body, energy, your souls, my soul. It's here. There was a hijacking that happened that said you only get to experience spirit if you obey the rules of the temple or the church or the theology. Do you follow the revolution that's been happening in our culture over the last 2 or 3 decades? The revolution is no, we don't need a priest or priestess to experience the wonder of the universe, aka God. We don't need a priest or priestess for that. We don't need to be purified. We don't need to be initiated. We don't need to know the right psalms, do the right yoga, have the right diet, because just by being alive, we're part of it. Just by being alive, we're part of it. Aren't we? So maybe one of the reasons for the phenomena is, hey, wake up. You're just part of it. You haven't noticed how beautiful the flowers are. You haven't noticed how extraordinary trees in the sky are. Look, we'll pop this up as well, just to stun you. And we'll create PowerPoints in time just to wake you up. But wake up to what? Wake up to what? Do you think aliens are going to come and explain everything? There's a theory. Did you know there's a theory that aliens are allowed to visit here because they may have more advanced technology? Just like somebody down the road may have a Ferrari. And they come to visit humanity because humanity knows about suffering and compassion and love. We're good at that. We're good at consciousness. We're good at empathy. We're good at connection. I like that interpretation. But the commonality of the spiritual traditions would just say to us, for goodness sake, would you just wake up? Would you just every day at least once a day, why not? Maybe you could do it every hour. Couldn't you just possibly wake up and go, look where I am. I am connected. This is the experience. And let it in. Not in your mind, but in your heart, in your body, and your mind. Did you follow the commonality there? The spiritual traditions would also have this huge commonality in, hey, how about self-managing your development? How about not giving your power away to this book that may have the answer, or that guru who may have the answer, or that teacher that creates an experience? How about you spend some regular time pausing and self-reflecting on your own growth? Because if you want to feel the big experience, you're going to have to develop and change. Because otherwise you're locked in the prison of being a human. This is the yoga of the neurotic penguin. Beloved of managers the world over. What are you monitoring in the self-development? You're monitoring maybe 3 things. 1, are you processing your psychological stuff? There are some of you here maybe who are still, I doubt it, but there may be some of you here who are still looking purely at the maths and the geometry of phenomena. And I have to nudge you to understand that those are gateways into a full-body cellular experience that is the most sublime thing that can happen to the whole of your consciousness, and you're going to have to, like the rest of us, process psychological stuff. Because otherwise the sublime insights you have through the maths and the patterns won't anchor all the way through you. They need to land. And as they try and land, they meet old wounds and, what's that, somebody's phone. They meet old wounds and stuff. They just do. They meet karma. And if you don't process your stuff, you won't get the hit. You just won't get the hit. The second thing, the commonality of all the traditions is not only do you have to process your psychological stuff, you also need to do your best to expand your consciousness. You're not just the human being that you think you are. You're not. You're not. There's a part of you that quite often just witnesses what's cooking. You're just watching, aren't you? Who is that part who's watching? Who is that part that's watching you while you do your thing? Who is that part that's watching me, William the neurotic penguin? Who's that part watching me? How extraordinary to spend some time regularly sitting quietly, trying to expand into, feel into, land that other aspect of myself. The witness, the expanding consciousness. The mind that's more than a mind, the supermind. The mind that's more than the mind, it's filled with heart and psyche and energy awareness. So part of the self-monitoring is deal with your psychological process, expand your consciousness, and third, hey, check the vibration. Check the resonance, because if you do it like a cold fish, you're just going to turn into a clever dick. Which I did for a while. I was one of the world's great clever dicks. Ernest Ernie, the detached witnessing clever dick. From all across the world, you will meet great meditators, like what I was, who, in neurotic penguin pose, witness everything and have these little snaky mouths that say, "Did you notice that?" And my lesson and the lesson of the people who switch on consciousness is the third element. You have to pull the lever and become compassionate and soft and oceanic and wise and flowing, because if you don't, you're just caught in a little fridge, which may feel very clever and gives some power. In certain spiritual traditions, that has given certain men and women great power that they can witness. And they witness with coldness, they really frighten people. But it's meaningless. So we've got a little series of things building up here that are common to the spiritual traditions that I think we can own as belonging to contemporary spirituality. Connect with the wonder of life, absorb it, feel it, do it daily. To work on yourself, work on your psychological stuff, expand your consciousness, and throw the switch to become more compassionate. Get the vibe right. Get the vibe right, for God's sake, and land it. Land it in your toenails. Land it in your toenails, heart, belly, land it. Land it. What would you rather know? Would you rather have the secrets of the crop circles unpacked, or would you rather just be full consciousness all the way through to your toenails and a blessing for everybody else? Right? What would you rather be? So we've got 1, connect with the spiritual experience. 2, monitor how your own growth is doing. 3rd, how about checking that the way you live your life is right livelihood? Right livelihood, service. Don't you think, us lot of all people on this planet, the people who are supposedly waking up, if we don't monitor and guide that our lives are harmless, have right livelihood, and are of a blessing to other people, if us lot don't do it, who is going to do it? And it starts with the little things, doesn't it? Woe on you if you're still buying loo paper that's not recycled. Woe on you if you've got a big car that you don't really need, but it just like extends the size of your safety aura. Come on, guys. You know, come on, women. You know, the keeping up with the Joneses bit, the status games, you've got to drop them. Imagine how relaxed it is to drop them. Imagine. Don't you think we need to check? I might be getting to sound like a sermon, isn't it? So it's time for me to fuck off, really, isn't it? Because I'd rather you came up here and poked my eyes out and shut me out the door than I end up sounding like a sermon, right? Because we're trying to deconstruct all this old hierarchical, patriarchal stuff, which has done us no service. So here am I, like, putting together a package for us, you know, white man, middle-aged, blah-de-blah, educated, and I'm doing the same thing again, right? And I might even get earnest about it. Wouldn't that be tragic? What are you going to do with me? Half burn me, half put me in a coffin. I don't know. Right? It's one of the choices I've made. Is I think we will not fulfill our mission as an incarnational soul group unless we start to wave a flag for what we believe in. And thus far, we have been so sensitive to the deconstruction of patriarchy and hierarchy and ordering people about and being dominant and all those kinds of things that we've not found our true voices. And the kind of voice I'm talking about is that we can go into a bar or a pub or a cafe and somebody can say to us, "What are you into?" And you can look them straight in the eye and say, "I'm into contemporary spirituality. I'm into a holistic approach to healthcare." "What's that?" "That's a load of rubbish." "No, it's not. Don't you ever experience the wonder of life?" "Well, of course I do." "When does that happen for you?" "You know, does it happen when your football team's just won?" "Yeah." "Well, wouldn't you like to have that feeling all the time?" "Well, maybe." "Well, how about, did you know there are these strategies for doing it?" "Well, that's interesting, isn't it?" "And didn't you know that they possibly will guide the way you should live your life as well? Because there's, you know, in those moments you feel fraternity and love and community with everybody, you know, doesn't it say it? You know, that, like, wrap it out in the bar. Instead of this, like, humble little one, "I'm into spirituality." Yeah, if you're into ley lines and crop circles, it's great to be into them. Speak it out loud, but you need to know what they stand for. They're gateways, they're signals, they're symbols for this other reality, which says that human beings are not just robots to function successfully in a consumer society. That's not what we are. We're beings that emerged out of the earth that have cosmic consciousness. And if people like us do not state it out loud, who is? Do you follow what I'm saying? You know, Satis, if Satis was here, he'd be going, soil, society, soul. Soil, society, soul. Get engaged with the earth, with the society, the community in which you live, and with your own soul. I'm saying, enjoy the phenomena, but don't miss the point. Don't get lost in your head if it's enjoyable and you have mental orgasms. Yes, of course. Why should I want to deny you that? Of course I don't want to. But I'm saying incarnate it. Land it. Do the shoveling that goes with it. What time am I supposed to stop? Oh, cool. Okay. I can harangue you some more. I can harangue you, but let me just show you a part of how I think it goes. Do you fancy doing a closed eyes thing? It's not a visualization. It's a body awareness. Anybody want to stretch? You okay? If you feel like stretching, stretch. Because stretching feels like it's just going to make you hot, doesn't it? Okay, just close your eyes. Let's go into another dimension. Just for the body language of it. Would you put your hands on your lower stomach? And would you allow your stomach to sink and relax a bit? And would you lower your chin slightly? And turn your eyes down as if you're looking down into your stomach. And would you take 3 long, slow, deep breaths? And would you move your toes, just to remind yourself of how far you go to? Keep your stomach relaxed. Let it sink a bit. Keep your eyes down as if you're looking down into your body. And would you check, what's your attitude towards your body? And I'd ask you to put a wee twinkle and smile in your eyes. And open your heart. And have that kind attitude, communicating messages through your nervous system into your body. I'd like your attitude to your body to be that of a kind parent to a little child that likes attention, needs attention, that is hurt even. Kind eyes, open heart. And if there's any area in your body that is in tension or any pain, would you turn your focus towards that area of your body? With a kind attitude, smiling eyes, accepting. Into the tissue. Breathing. Keep your focus in your body. And why not take the image of your favorite circle or pattern and allow it to sit inside your body. And give yourself a wee stretch. I don't know what happened for you in that silence, but there are 2 points that I want you to get from it, and some of you will be very familiar with them. One is your whole body is the vehicle for your consciousness to incarnate into. And your whole body is the sensory organ for what it is happening when you're in a place where there's phenomena. Life. Do you follow what I'm saying? That there's a cognition through your eyes, ears, taste. There's a processing in the mind. There's an opening in the heart. But the way we're constructed, in fact, is that we're full energy beings interlinked with a nervous system and endocrine system. And we feel what's cooking in the whole vehicle. And the way to attune the instrument of perception has got to be in the first place by coming home to your body and centering in it. You can't use your body as the tuning fork to resonate with what's there unless you yourself are inside your body feeling what's happening. Which is why every magical, esoteric, shamanic tradition, without exception, says before you do your work, during your work, after your work, center, ground, earth, embody, be within yourself. And to be embodied, to be earthed and grounded, is not to do with the planet Earth, in fact, because you could be on the other side of the moon, floating in space, yet still have a sense of being centered. It just so happens that the cutting edge of healthcare at the moment, in which I'm fully engaged, is to do with mind-body awareness and the messages that go through your mind and your nervous system into your endocrine system, changing the chemistry of your body. Sometimes I've been thinking, as I was thinking about the talk, I was thinking how strange that if I were your tutor on a long course for energy awareness in phenomena, stones, lays, landscape, then I'm teaching you precisely the same strategies that I'm teaching physicians, clinicians in hospitals. I'm teaching exactly the same strategies of body awareness in order to get different effects. Inside holistic medicine, the key lesson at the moment is that the quality of mood that's in your mind-heart as it communicates into your body determines cortisol levels, adrenaline levels, the levels of tension. 85% of illnesses from middle age onwards are to do with tension in tissue. They constrict tissue and they set up all the basic foundations for strokes, heart attacks, cancer, just you name it, 85%. And the same precise, how strange, isn't it? Precisely the same strategy for working with your body for your health, which is the inner smile, kind eyes into yourself, is precisely the same strategy that is needed to attune your body in order to feel the energy fields around you. What a strange convergence. How strange, too, that if I then ask you, all right, I led you in the meditation, but who was it in you that was following the instructions and doing them? Who was it in you that was listening and agreeing to go along with it? Who was it in you that was listening, agreeing to go along with it, and having the experience? Watching the experience. Do you follow what I'm saying? There's a part of you that does the exercise, watches the change, watches you having difficulty with it, watches you struggling with it, watches a part of you saying, no, I'm giving up on this is boring, it's too hot, I can't do this, or getting it. There's a part of you watching. How strange that that part of you that's watching is precisely that element that is your consciousness, that in spiritual traditions they say, that bit of you that's listening, that bit of you that's doing it, that bit of you that's witnessing, that's you. That's you. How much time do you hang out there? And that part of the psyche, the consciousness that's being developed with this kind of work, whether it's in healthcare or energy work, is surely the evolving soul. Is surely the evolving higher consciousness. Do you follow this? There's a synergy happening in our culture at the moment. It's not just in our spiritual culture. It's happening in medicine. It's happening in healthcare. I work as an educationist as well, and you need to know, in Britain at any rate, that Ofsted, which is the official body for governing schools, Ofsted has communicated very clearly, and it's in the Education Acts, in the top paragraph of the Education Acts for this country, that spirituality is to be embedded across the curriculum. By spirituality, this is a definition that I put on spirituality, which is drawn from Ofsted, from the NHS, National Health Service for visitors to the country, and also from social services, where there's an interest in grounding spirituality into caregiving, because there's a need for an inclusive, multi-faith, practical approach. The definition, and it's in the notes, the definition that we're using at the moment, and I'm using it partly because we're developing an MA in holistic spirituality that covers all this stuff for a London university, is spirituality is our connection and experience of the wonder of nature in the universe. Our connection with and experience of the wonder of nature in the universe. brackets, if you want, aka God, Spirit, the mystery. And it's our experience of that and the natural instinct to explore its meaning, to connect with the wonder, experience the wonder, and explore its meaning. Explore its meaning for values, morality, education, development, citizenship. So this is what I want to say to you at the end. I think all of us, to fulfill the mission of our generation, need to take our spirituality, which is new and young, had thousands of years of a temple, church, hierarchical-based religion, spirituality. We need to take our form of spirituality, which is inclusive, open-hearted, centering on experience. We need to land and ground it into the way we express our lives. It starts with doing basic practice. Don't forget to connect. Don't forget to monitor your development. And it then goes into an expression into our communities. Smiling and friendship to every alienated, disenfranchised human being that you meet as you walk through the day. Open your heart to them, make eye contact, smile. Greet the people that you might normally be frightened of, because our spirituality requires courage to reach out to build community. Most of us have developed skills of patience, inclusiveness, and the celebration of diversity. Use those skills. Go back into jobs, voluntary jobs as school governors, hospital governors, local council, all those decision-making bodies where people like us are needed to be there patiently, inclusively, keeping an eye on ecological balance, the spiritual welfare of the teachers and the children, of the medics. Do you understand what I'm saying? Get involved. Be prepared to have these conversations in pubs. Be prepared to talk to your friends about it. Engage them in conversation. Don't expect them to agree. Be adult about the fact that it's the beginnings of conversations. And you engage with them. They say they don't agree. Welcome the disagreement. So many people in the spiritual world seem to want to be approved of by their friends. I believe in this. You're supposed to believe in it too. That's not what it's about. It's about, these are the general principles in which I believe. They're to do with the harmony of life. Where are you at in relation to that? Oh, you don't agree? That's great. Let's have a discussion about it. Do you follow what I'm saying? I put out very recently, just for the fun of it with a friend, we wrote some evening classes throughout our education in this country, 10 evening classes. Introduction to spirituality. First class was, what turns you on, students? What connects you to the wonder of life? Second class, when you've had that connection, what does it say about your morality? I put it out on my email circuit. It's running in 20 colleges this autumn in Britain. Just an open approach, just landed so easily into our culture at the moment. Enough. I have to end. Well, you've seen me from neurotic penguin to ranting patriarch to deconstructing contemporary type of creature. I think of all the things, if you can just remember that the phenomena are triggers and doorways to your own full experience, and to own it and do it, I think that would be a blessing for all of us. So, blessed be. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, William Bloom.